Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, this is what's dominating our pattern. We're looking here at the flow of the atmosphere at the jet stream level midday on Tuesday, and what we see is this dominant ridge that's sitting over Western Canada right there. Now, normally whenever we see a flow pattern like this, I would call it blocked up. But what we're going to see here is that it's really only blocking the flow right underneath this ridge over the coming days. Now, normally for it to technically be a block, it's got to be in position there for the next 10 days and really affect the flow. What we're going to see here is that many systems are going to slide right underneath the southern side of this ridge that's developing on the strong subtropical branch, because look out here in the open Pacific. The winds are quite strong and zonal, which means they're coming primarily from the west to the east. So with that as our setup, let's kind of take a look here at what recent precipitation has looked like, because that pattern will certainly influence precipitation, especially in the Pacific Northwest. We've gone through the last 7 days, as we forecast last week, as a relatively drier time period for parts of California. Meanwhile, massive low pressure systems have gone through the middle part of the country, and I know you've probably heard me report on this, but I just want to let you know the flooding that's going on right here in the Central Plains, the flooding that's going on in the lower Mississippi River Valley, these two regions are going to continue to have problems through the next 10 days and beyond because of the melting snow there and just the enormous amounts of water. Plus, that strong subtropical jet stream is going to fuel low pressure systems, a big one coming out on the 25th that's going to hit both of these regions again. But overall, California, relatively dry week as we forecast, and it wasn't really that wet up here in the Pacific Northwest either. We just had a couple of systems slide through and bring some rain there, primarily to the coastal region. Okay, if we just take a bigger picture look first, over the next 15 days, we see that overall things are relatively dry in parts of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. But we do see down here a wetter bias kind of pushing to California, Nevada, Utah. Now we have to talk about why it's split. You kind of see this north-south split here where it's wetter to the south and drier to the north. And a lot of that has to do with the flow of the jet stream. Now in the near term, I'm going to animate for you here the high-resolution NAM model. We got to see what precipitation is coming toward us in the evening on Tuesday in California and southern Oregon. So we do have a weak little trough that's sneaking under that huge ridge that's going to be bringing in some widely scattered showers by the time we get into the afternoon and evening on Tuesday. So see it right here coming into California, mainly in northern California here, the northern 2/3 of the state, in the overnight hours on Tuesday. We'll get some higher elevation snow there, but there you can really see the cutoff nature of that low kind of spiraling into northern California. Rain does spread into southern Oregon, but doesn't make it too much farther north than that, and it also spreads into parts of Nevada here. Now, this isn't a major flood producer, so I know you're kind of seeing some yellows in there, but this is just showing us what the radar reflectivity would look like. If we put it all together, this is our total accumulated precipitation through Thursday midday. And we can see that overall rainfall amounts are relatively light, ranging anywhere, here in California between a couple of tenths of an inch of rain. Some locations may be getting up over a half inch of rain. Now, we've been wet in this area, but this isn't going to be producing major flooding. Picking up snow here, of course, at the higher elevations, both in California and in Nevada. But if we kind of take a look at how far this system makes it to the north, getting you through, again, the middle of the week through midday on Thursday, it's really only parts of southern Oregon that are going to be getting any precipitation out of this. Much of the rest of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana are going to stay relatively dry with this first little system that kind of sneaks through. Now, I want to show you what I'm talking about here. This is the trough that's coming on that I just showed you the effect of. What's it doing? It's orbiting around this huge ridge here. So you're actually going to see troughs, as we talked about last week, following a trajectory just like this. And that's why California is tending to be wetter over the next 10 to 15 days than parts of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. So it's going to be the southern part of this that's wetter than the northern part. Let's kind of take a look at this flow and kind of get down the timing of the next few systems. So you'll see that as we progress through the middle of this week that it's this ridge that dominates things. We'll talk about temperatures in a second. Here's the trough that swings through, bringing in the unsettled weather through the day on Thursday, so Tuesday through Thursday. Now after that, that trough kind of moves on over to the middle part of the country, and then our next trough comes in again right here this weekend, coming right in here to California again, northern California. But that ridge sitting here over western Canada, getting up toward Alaska, is going to really protect a lot of the northwest from seeing much in the way of heavier precipitation. But you see the next trough, see it over here? This is now Monday, getting into Tuesday, making its way toward Northern California. So what do we see? We just keep seeing these troughs that have to go around that bigger ridge feature and hit California primarily rather than hitting much of the rest of the Northwest. So that one comes through, ridge builds back in, here comes the next trough. Where does it come through? Again, into California. That's why we saw California with the wet bias and the Northwest with the dry bias. The pattern shoves these systems a little bit farther to the south here around that dominant ridge that's sitting and spinning in this area. Okay, so that's our pattern. Let's take a look at what this means in terms of actual precipitation every 6 hours. So I had to give you this full northern kind of North America view here to see each one of these systems coming out of the Gulf of Alaska. So let's just get you right to Thursday. That's the first system we already talked about coming into Northern California right there. Much of the Northwest remains dry throughout much of this week. It may not be until the very end of this week that a system that goes curling up into Alaska brings a front that comes across the whole of the Northwest, sweeping through parts of Oregon and Washington, bringing in some rain to lower elevations and some snow at very high elevation. That's because temperatures are going to be quite warm here. But that's not a big precipitation maker that comes through at the end of this week, getting into Saturday. But then again, once we get to Sunday, things relatively dry. And our next system comes through, look, takes aim right there on Northern California and Oregon. So this is the system on Monday, that trough that comes through on Monday. Kind of skirts along the coast, but then the next big trough, look at it again. See it here? This one hits by next Tuesday into Wednesday. Again, Northern California. Comes right in through there. So you see that pattern is what's got us set up here. So we just kind of step back and take a look at precipitation amounts. We can see that getting us all the way through next Tuesday morning, so this takes us out a week, our region that's going to have the best chance at getting precipitation is, again, Northern California, where we may be adding, with these next few systems, an additional inch to maybe in some locations over 2 inches of rainfall. So that's in addition to the system that comes through Tuesday through Wednesday of this week. But if you get farther up, up the coast north, we see that overall precipitation amounts are relatively light. So that's the map that's over here on the right-hand side. In fact, a lot of folks right here in the Columbia Basin, the Columbia River Valley, things are going to be relatively dry through the next, maybe over through the next 10 days. Okay. With that same pattern, though, watch what temperatures will do. The National Weather Service out of Seattle tweeted this out. Seattle on Monday hit 74 degrees, which is a daily record. It's the warmest winter day on record. It's the earliest in the calendar year that we have been this warm, and the third warmest March day on record. And it's 42 degrees warmer than the high temperature on February 4th. So it's amazing to see the large swing in temperatures there. We'll take a look at it. This is what those afternoon temperatures look like across the Pacific Northwest. With that huge ridge in place here, the warmth has to go up and around it, and that's why we had really nice conditions here. This has caused, with the abundance of moisture in California, we had these huge, beautiful spring blooms that have come up here. And I don't mean to say something that scares us all, but remember, when we have a lot of spring vegetative growth, if we get into a very hot and dry summer, a lot of that turns over to tinder that we could have which would make us very worried about fire threat. But right now, it is absolutely beautiful. Well, what are these temperatures doing? Well, I bet you can imagine what they're doing with that big ridge in place. Ready? So I click play. Look at the warmth we see. I'll just keep going through this. Look at the warmth we see sticking around in the Northwest. Meanwhile, where is it cool? Where the rain is coming in, especially in parts of Northern California. So as we keep playing this forward, the Northwest stays nice and warm compared to average, whereas it's going to be California with the frequent showers coming in off the Pacific Ocean that carries the cooler bias. So this is all playing nicely when we kind of take a look at that overall flow pattern. I'll say this though, Spokane, you had set a record back on March 16th for the deepest snow you'd had. This is Spokane, Washington, deepest snow you had that late into the season at 11 inches. That will be gone. We are melting this stuff off. So even though we're not getting a lot of precipitation in the Northwest, the snow melt is actually going to give us some near-term flood threat. Now, I want to just kind of give a tease for what I'm going to talk about in my video tomorrow, my long-range forecast coming out on my.nutrienagsolutions.com. I'm going to take you all the way out to April 15th here, just as a sneak peek. It looks as though we're going to see the flow pattern at times featuring a very strong subtropical jet stream, which is going to do something like this. With all that snowpack in the mountains, this could mean that we continue to keep our wetter pattern for California for a little while here. But this also means a warm-up for the eastern part of the United States, while maybe the west remains in this kind of cooler pattern, especially the southwest. maybe getting us all the way through the end of April. So that's a bit different than what we've seen over the last couple of years, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow in the forecast video, plus an update discussion on El Nino. So hopefully you tune in again tomorrow to get my long-range forecast. With that, I'm going to wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next Western Regional Forecast video that's coming out on Friday morning. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.